Most people think their mind is the one thing they can trust completely. It's yours. It's always been with you. You've got to know you've got to be careful with it, because your mind will rule your life if you don't learn to rule your mind first. Here's what keeps me up at night about this topic. You're probably operating with a mind that's not entirely yours. Sounds impossible, right? Every voice you've heard, every message you've absorbed, every belief you inherited from your parents, your culture, your failed experiences, they've all taken up residence in your mind, and the majority of people never evict them. They live their entire lives listening to a broadcast that was installed when they were too young to change the channel. But here's the real shock. It doesn't have to be that way. By the end of this conversation, you're going to see something you've been blind to your entire life. You're going to understand why most people fail before they even start. Not because they lack ability or opportunity, but because they never mastered the one instrument that controls everything, their own mind. Let me ask you something that might sting a little bit. How much of what you think during the day is actually your thinking? How much of it is programming, habit, fear, doubt that was planted by someone else's failure, not yours? Most people never ask this question. They just keep moving through life like a car on autopilot, wondering why they keep ending up at the same destination. That's not a problem with your circumstances. That's a problem with your control panel. Now, I'm not talking about meditation or positive affirmations or those feel-good mantras that make you feel better for 5 minutes and then fade away. I'm talking about something more fundamental. I'm talking about the architecture of your thinking, the invisible infrastructure that determines your decisions, your discipline, your direction, and ultimately your destiny. The average person spends more time planning a 2-week vacation than they do planning their life. And they certainly don't spend any time examining the mental patterns that are running the show. They just assume their brain works correctly. They assume that if they want something badly enough, they'll do it. But that's not how the human mind works at all. Your mind is like a garden. If you don't tend it, it will grow exactly what it wants to grow. Weeds don't need your permission. Weeds don't need a business plan. They just grow. And most people let their minds become overgrown with weeds, weeds of doubt, weeds of worry, weeds of other people's limitations. Here's the first thing you need to understand about your mind. It's incredibly efficient at doing what it thinks its job is. And if you've never defined what its job is, it will decide for you. It will prioritize survival over success. It will prioritize comfort over growth. It will prioritize the familiar over the possible. That's not weakness, that's programming. And once you understand that, you can rewrite the code. Let me tell you about a man I met years ago. Brilliant engineer, could solve problems nobody else could see. But his personal life was a disaster. Bad relationships, no savings, constant stress. One day I asked him, "What's your plan for your life?" He looked at me confused. He had a plan for everything at work, detailed systems, metrics, everything optimized. But for his life, nothing. His mind had never been given clear instructions, so it did what minds do when they're not directed. It followed the path of least resistance. The path of least resistance never leads to the destination you actually want to go. Here's what most people get wrong about discipline. They think it's about forcing yourself to do things you don't want to do. It's the opposite. Real discipline is teaching your mind what it wants. It's retraining your desires so that what you want to do and what you should do are the same thing. That's freedom. That's power. But how do you retrain a mind that's been running the same program for 30, 40, 50 years? You understand first that you didn't build that program. You inherited it. You absorbed it. And absorption doesn't require your conscious agreement. It happens while you're just living your life. Think about this. You probably know exactly how your parents handled money. You probably handle money the same way, either exactly like them or in exact rebellion against them. Rebellion is still letting them control the outcome, One person spends everything, the other hoards everything. Same wound, different symptom. The mind is running a program they wrote, not one you chose. Now here's where it gets interesting. Your environment is constantly uploading new programs into your mind. The people around you, the media you consume, the conversations you have, they're all writing code into your consciousness. And if you're not conscious about it, literally conscious, aware, paying attention, that code gets installed without your approval. I knew a woman who wanted to be an artist. Her family was all engineers and doctors, not because they were pushing her away from art. They just never talked about art. Every dinner conversation was about practical things, about safety, about security. Years later, she realized, her mind had learned that art wasn't practical. It wasn't safe. It wasn't the kind of thing people like us do. Her mind had been programmed by silence. She never heard anyone say art was bad. But she never heard anyone say it was possible either. That's the power of environment. It doesn't have to shout at you. It just has to be consistent. It just has to be everywhere around you. And your mind absorbs the message like a plant absorbs water from the soil. But here's what most people don't realize. You have more control over your environment than you think. And your environment has more control over your mind than you know. These two facts should wake you up. The person you're becoming is largely determined by the 5 people you spend the most time with. I didn't make that rule. That's just how human neurology works. We mirror the people around us. We absorb their values, their expectations, their dreams, and yes, their limitations. If you want to know what your unconscious mind believes is possible for you, look at your friends. Look at your family. Not because there's anything wrong with them, but because they're like mirrors. They're reflecting back to you the world you've accepted as real. Now, most people won't change this. It's uncomfortable. It requires you to acknowledge that some relationships might be draining your potential. Some people might be better described as anchors than as friends. But the cost of comfort is the price of stagnation, and you don't get to have both. Let me tell you about something most people never think about. Your inner conversation, the voice in your head that never stops talking. Most people think it's just noise, random thoughts, but it's actually the most powerful force in your life. It's the governor on your engine. It's the invisible hand writing the story you live. Listen to what you tell yourself throughout the day. I mean, really listen. Not the filtered version you present to the world. The actual conversation happening in your head when you're alone. Most people's inner conversation is a highlight reel of their failures. You can't do that. You've tried before. People like you don't get lucky breaks. You're not the type of person who succeeds at that. These aren't observations, they're curses, and they're being spoken by you to you, every single day. Here's what's stunning about this. You could have a completely different inner conversation tomorrow. You could wake up and tell yourself a different story about who you are and what's possible. Your circumstances wouldn't change. Your ability wouldn't change. But your mind would be directing you toward opportunity instead of away from it. Let me give you an example. 2 people experience rejection. The same event. Different inner conversations. One person says, I failed. I'm a failure. This always happens to me. The other says, that didn't work. Now I know something I didn't know before. Same event, different meaning, different trajectory. The person with the conversation that says this is information experience disappointment, but maintains direction. The person with the conversation that says this proves I'm not good enough falls further into the trap. And here's the trap nobody talks about. Every time you have that second conversation, you've reinforced the neural pathway that makes the next negative thought automatic. Your mind gets faster at confirming your limitations. So most people aren't failing because they're not trying hard enough. They're failing because they're arguing for their limitations so loudly and so consistently that their mind has no choice but to obey. Here's something dangerous about living on autopilot. Your default settings become invisible. You stop questioning them. You think they're just the way things are. You think you're just being realistic when you're actually just being limited. You think you're being practical when you're actually being imprisoned by other people's categories. One of the first people to really break this open was William James. He said, the greatest revolution of his generation would be the discovery that human beings can alter their lives by altering the attitudes of their minds. That's not poetry. That's neurology. That's documented. Your mind is plastic. It reshapes based on how you use it. It literally changes at the cellular level based on your thoughts and your focus. But most people treat their mind like it came with a fixed operating system. Like the version it's running is the version it will always run. So they accept their depression as a fact. They accept their anxiety as their personality. They accept their limitations as their identity. And their mind, being obedient and efficient, says, okay, if that's what you've decided about yourself, I'll build that reality for you. So here's the question. What if you stopped making that decision? What if you started examining the stories you tell yourself about who you are and where you belong? Not the nice stories. The real ones, the ones you actually believe. I'm not a math person. I'm not attractive. I'm not the kind of person people like. Success is for people with better luck. These aren't universal truths. They're habits of thought, and they can be changed. But they can't be changed by wishing. They can't be changed by wanting it differently. They have to be changed by practice, by deliberately, consistently, day after day, choosing a different thought. This is where discipline becomes relevant. Not discipline to force yourself through suffering, but discipline as the bridge between who you are and who you want to become. The gap between intention and reality can only be crossed through the discipline to think thoughts that don't come naturally, to believe things that aren't proven yet, to act on faith when logic says wait. Here's the thing about your mind. It's incredibly resistant to change. Not because it's stubborn, but because change feels dangerous. Your brain's primary job is to keep you alive. New thoughts feel risky. New behaviors feel unreliable. So your mind will literally create evidence to prove that change is a bad idea. It will search your memory for every time you tried something new and failed. It will project that failure into the future and say, see, I told you so. This is called confirmation bias, and it's running the show for most people. I watched this happen with a friend of mine, decided to get in shape. First week was brutal. He's tired, he's sore, he's hungry. His mind immediately started generating evidence that this was a stupid idea. You're not a fitness person. Your body doesn't respond like other people's bodies. You've always been out of shape. Why fight your nature? The mind was doing its job, protecting him from discomfort. But comfort is the slowest way to die. It just takes longer than most people have. So what does someone do when they're fighting against their own mind? When their mind is actively working against their own goals? Here's what most people don't understand. You don't fight your mind. You redirect it. You give it a new job, a new directive. You reprogram it by being absolutely clear about what you want and why you want it. You write it down. Not because the paper remembers, but because you remember differently when you've written it down. You've made it real. You've moved it from the vague realm of maybe to the concrete realm of definitely. Most people have vague intentions. I want to be successful. I want to be healthy. I want to be happy. Vague intentions produce vague results. Your mind doesn't know what to optimize for. Successful at what? Healthy in what way? Happy according to whose definition? But when you get specific, when you say, I want to earn a 6-figure income in 5 years, or I want to run a half marathon by next spring, or I want to have a relationship based on mutual respect and growth, suddenly your mind has a target. It can start working. It can start noticing opportunities you were blind to before. It can start imagining the path even if you can't see it yet. This is the beginning of taking control. Now, here's something nobody wants to hear. Your life will not change until you change. Not your circumstances. You, your thinking, your choices, your daily habits, the small things you do when nobody's watching. Most people wait for permission or proof, or a guarantee that it will work before they change. Your mind is waiting for you to change first. It's waiting for the evidence that this new way of thinking is safe. It's waiting for proof that it won't destroy your life. But that proof only comes from trying. That safety only comes from consistency. So you have to go first. This is the ultimate act of faith. You have to believe in yourself before you have any evidence that you should. Let me tell you about a study they did with people learning piano. 2 groups of complete beginners. The first group practiced piano. The second group didn't practice piano, but they visualized practicing piano. They imagined their fingers on the keys, imagined the sounds, played through the songs in their mind. The group that practiced improved dramatically. But here's what shocked the researchers. The visualization group improved almost as much. Not from playing, from imagining playing. Because the mind doesn't know the difference between a vivid imagination and a lived experience. Both create neural pathways. Both teach your mind how to think and what to expect. This is how you take control before you have proof. You practice in your mind. You see yourself handling the situation differently. You imagine yourself having the courage, having the knowledge, having the strength. You do it enough times in your mind that when the real situation arrives, you're not meeting it for the first time. You've already lived it. You've already won. But most people don't do this. They just wait. They wait until they feel confident. They wait until they have proof. They wait until it's safe. And they'll be waiting their entire lives. Because those conditions only come after you've already done the thing. So here's what the day looks like for someone who's taking control of their mind. They start by getting conscious. They listen to their inner conversation. They notice what they're telling themselves. They don't try to fix it or fight it. They just become aware of it. Because awareness is the first step toward change. You can't change what you don't see. Then they get intentional. They decide what they want, not what they think they should want, not what's realistic, not what's practical, what they actually want. And they get specific about it. They write it down. They talk about it. They look at it every day. They make it real. Then they change their environment. They find people who are becoming who they want to be. They consume content that's expanding their mind instead of confirming their limitations. They reduce time with people and conversations that are pulling them down. Not because those people are bad, but because direction matters. Then they practice the new thinking. Every day, not when they feel like it. Every day. They do this by meditation, by journaling, by affirmation, by visualization. They practice telling themselves a new story about who they are and what's possible. And here's the part most people skip. They start acting like the person they want to become, even before they believe it, even before they have proof. Because action changes belief faster than belief changes action. You get courage by doing courageous things. You get discipline by doing disciplined things. You get success by doing successful things. This is when the magic starts happening. Because now your life and your inner conversation are in alignment. They're reinforcing each other. You believe something is possible, so you take action. You take action, so you get proof. You get proof, so you believe more. You believe more, so you take bigger action. This is the upward spiral. This is how people transform their lives. But it has to start somewhere, and that somewhere is in your mind. Taking control, making a decision, deciding that you're not going to let your past, your fears, or your circumstances write your future. I'll tell you something that changed everything for me. I realized that I didn't have to be great to start, but I had to start to be great. That one thought, that shifted everything. Because I was waiting to be worthy. I was waiting to be ready. I was waiting to be confident. But those things don't come first. They come after you've started showing up, day after day, doing the work, even when you don't feel like it. Here's what I wish someone had told me when I was younger. The greatest rebellion against a limited life is to believe something bigger. not bigger than what's possible. Bigger than what you've been told is possible for you. The greatest revolution is an internal one. It's choosing to think differently, to believe differently, to become different. And the beautiful part? You get to do that today, right now. Nobody can stop you. Your boss can't stop your thinking. Your circumstances can't stop your imagination. Your past can't stop your growth. The only thing that can stop you is your agreement with the story that you're already defined, that your mind is already set, that who you are now is who you'll always be. But that's not true. You're not a finished product. You're a work in progress. You're becoming. And every single day you have a chance to become someone slightly better, slightly stronger, slightly wiser than you were yesterday. Most people don't take that chance. They coast. They accept. They resign themselves to their current version. But not you, because you've heard this. You understand now. Your mind is not your master. It's your instrument. And an instrument is only as powerful as the musician playing it. So the real question isn't, can I change my mind? The real question is, am I willing to do what it takes? Because the work is simple. But it's not easy. You're going to have to notice your thoughts. You're going to have to challenge them. You're going to have to choose new ones, over and over and over, until they become automatic, until thinking small and playing it safe feels as uncomfortable as growth currently does, until believing in yourself becomes your baseline. This is the practice. This is the discipline. Not the discipline of denial or deprivation, but the discipline of development, the discipline that says I'm worth becoming better. My future is worth the investment of my current focus. My potential is worth fighting for, even when nobody else sees it yet. And when you do this work, something remarkable happens. You stop waiting for life to happen to you. You start happening to life. You stop being a passenger in your own story. You become the author. You become the decision maker. You become the one steering the ship. This is mastery, not perfection, not control of every circumstance, but mastery of the one thing you actually have complete control over, your mind. So here's what I want you to know as we finish this. Everything you've accomplished in your life started as a thought. Everything you haven't accomplished yet also started as a thought. A thought that said it wasn't possible. That wasn't wise. That wasn't for people like you. Your mind is the creator of your reality. That's not spiritual philosophy. That's practical fact. Your mind determines what you notice, what you believe is possible, what actions you take, and your actions determine your results. So if your results aren't where you want them to be, the only place to go looking is your mind. Not to blame yourself, but to reclaim yourself, to take back control of the broadcast that's been running on autopilot, to become the broadcaster instead of just the listener. This is the moment. Not tomorrow, not when you have more time, not when you're more ready. Now, today. This is when you decide that your mind works for you or you work for your mind, that you're running the show or the show is running you. And I'm telling you right now, you can take back control. It's not too late. It's not too hard. It's not for someone else. It's for you. This conversation, this moment, this understanding, it's the beginning of something different. So do this. Starting tomorrow morning, before anything else happens. Before the day hijacks your mind, sit down for 15 minutes. Just 15 minutes and practice one thing. Practice telling yourself the truth about who you're becoming, not who you've been. Who you're becoming. Listen to that voice in your head. Slow it down. Make it conscious. And if it's telling you a story that's holding you back, interrupt it. Stop it. Tell yourself something true instead. Something that expands you instead of shrinking you. Do this for 30 days, every single day, and watch what changes, not in your circumstances necessarily, but in you. See yourself in what feels possible, in where you're willing to direct your energy. This is it. This is the secret. There is no secret. There's just the willingness to work on the most important project you'll ever work on. Yourself, your mind, your character, your capability. Your future isn't determined by luck or by circumstance. It's determined by the conversation you have with yourself every single day. Change that conversation, and you change your life. And that, my friend, is the whole story.